What's going on, everybody? Jackson Fuller here, and you are listening to the latest episode of Hoggin the Mic. After a admittedly 2-week break, we apologize for that. It was the bye week, and I went back home to North Carolina, and Hutch, I got a little sick last week, and I won't lie, I got a little sick last week as well. Just a good overall break in the bye week for us. And of course, we missed a really fun podcast to record after the Tennessee win. But, if you guys know Hutch and I, we are the depressed ones on the Arkansas beat. We're the Debbie Downers, as the legendary Bob Holt calls us. So, of course, we had to return after a loss to LSU. We'll recap Saturday night's defeat to the Tigers, what it means kind of for the season, for the overall program, moving forward. And we'll also talk a little bit of Arkansas basketball, I'm sure, because John Calipari was down in Birmingham last week at SEC Media Days, and the Hogs scrimmage Kansas this Friday in a charity exhibition. So should be a lot to talk about, not only today, but moving forward on Hoggin the Mic. And let's go ahead, play that rock music, bring in my partner, and get this episode rolling. Hutch, how are you? You feeling all better? I know I saw you on Saturday at the LSU game, but everything's all better for you. And I guess it was just the Hogs depression that is kind of what we're all dealing with right now.
Yeah. I'm not sure which was worse, having to suffer through that game on Saturday, or dealing with the little bout of strep throat that I got, probably from my 4-year-old. I'll blame that on her. But it was not a pretty sight on Saturday. It went much differently than I expected it to be. I thought it would at least be close. I picked Arkansas to win. I know you did too. We actually, ironically enough, picked the exact same score prediction. We were both very wrong. And Arkansas really, I guess technically they kind of let it get away late because it was a close game for 2.5 quarters. But yeah, it was ugly there down the stretch.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit right after, but it just never felt like Arkansas was really there within striking distance. And I know they were on the scoreboard, and Coach Pittman has kind of he's just kind of stressed this week that turnover really changed things when Talon threw the tipped interception that Whit Weeks batted up in the air and came down with, and then one play later it goes from 16-10 to 24-10, but I think even Sam could tell, and he's kind of talked about it over the past, couple days and in the immediate aftermath. Like early on, just Arkansas was not executing on either side of the football, and especially defensively. From my vantage point, the biggest difference in this game and why maybe Arkansas wasn't able to pull off an upset that both of us thought was possible and we both predicted was just the run game on both sides. And I know, I've written about Arkansas's run game. That's been talked about a ton, with Jaquindon Jackson and his injury. But as the more we get away from the game on Saturday, it's really their lack of their inability to stop LSU on the ground, letting Caden Durham rush for 100 yards. I don't think he lost yardage on any single run. I'm not LSU, I think, only had one carry where they lost yardage. That really made life difficult for the pass defense, and those short hitch routes that, Sam's kind of lamented and Arkansas's really given up all year. Instead of that being, on 3rd and 10, they were on 3rd and 5, and that's first down, moving the change. So for me, it was really the defensive run game that caused this to be kind of a blowout and maybe a surprise performance by Arkansas. What did you make of the performance, and where did maybe Arkansas fall the most here?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Pittman kind of told us what would happen if that was the case. If they didn't stop the run, he said they would be in trouble. And by God, he was exactly right. That was one of the main reasons, go back to the Tennessee win, why they had success against Tennessee is they shut down, a really, really good running back in Dylan Sampson, didn't let him get going. And I mean, he had the one really long run, but outside of that, he really didn't do much. That just wasn't the case. I mean, it felt like every time LSU carried the ball, you mentioned no negative runs, and it felt like they were getting, 3, 4, 5 yards every time. And, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6 is a whole heck of a lot easier to deal with than 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 10. So I really think that was the key. And then, on the other side of the ball, not being able to run the ball was critical. I mean, turns out, Jaquindon Jackson's been dealing with an ankle injury. He's been dealing with something here off and on. pretty much all season. It feels like there's been something that happened during the game that he's been banged up. That hurt, and then the other guys just weren't really effective. I mean, Braylon Russell, I think, carried the ball 3 times. I think he I think he had a couple of his runs went for 0 yards or something like that, and so it was not a good performance running the ball or stopping the run, and that's really kind of what it boiled down to. That's what I wrote about after the game. I know you said you wrote about it, so that really is what it all boiled down to. But even saying all that, you mentioned you didn't think that there was ever a moment where you felt like Arkansas really had a chance. I mean, when they got the stop and they got the ball back with a chance down 16-10, I was like, okay, maybe they can. The Tennessee game I thought was big mentally. Like, hey, they showed they can come back and they can win a close game. I was like, maybe they can do it again. They did it just last week or 2 weeks earlier, so like, why not this game? And the offense this year has really moved the ball pretty decent. They just keep shooting themselves in the foot, and they didn't waste any time before shooting themselves in the foot on that possession with the interception.
Yeah, it just felt very much like an inverse of that Tennessee game, where in the first half, Arkansas, like, it felt like they should have been up by more, right? And eventually we got to the end of the game, and the math worked out in a way where Arkansas won and pulled off the upset. And maybe it would have been an easier way to get there if they had taken care of business in the first half. Against LSU, it felt like LSU should have been up by more, honestly. I think they went into halftime up 16-7. It could have very easily had been 24-7, 28-7. LSU was the team not converting these long drives. And second half, eventually we got to the point where it all like worked out in terms of the game. The final score and the game flow did match up. But you're right. That's something that if you want to pull off an upset against a highly ranked team, you're going to have to get a little bit lucky. And Arkansas, I think, got a little lucky to have it be at 16-10 there midway through the third quarter. But at the end of the day, LSU there's undoubtedly more talent on that roster. And Weeks makes a play that not many people across the country probably make. And it seems like when listening to Sam as well, it might have been a poor read on Taylon's part. Like, he should have just handed the ball off there, but he tried to make a play. I think rewatching it looked like he did have a receiver open for at least a short pass, but they didn't block it well enough to execute. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. From then on out, LSU just really dominated the game on both sides. Real quick, I mentioned the negative runs and the tackles for loss. When Arkansas beat Tennessee, they had 4 tackles for loss and 4 sacks, and then against LSU, 1 tackle for loss and 0 sacks. Very hard to beat the number 8 team in the country when you're letting them kind of execute their offense like that. What'd you make of Taylon Green's game? Because obviously he got hurt against Tennessee. I thought the Tennessee game he played, even though Arkansas only scored 19 points, it was one of the more impressive performances we saw from him. And I kind of thought he played all right against LSU, other than the interception. And I guess we're getting to the point where we shouldn't minimize or trivialize the turnovers because they are playing such a big role in these Arkansas losses. But what do you think of Taylon's performance coming back from injury?
Yeah, I thought he played well as well. I mean, I thought, the one bad read that led to the interception, you can't discount that considering it was such a huge point in that game. But, I mean, I thought he played well. I thought he threw the ball accurately. Maybe the knee, the bone bruise maybe played a part of this. But there was at least one play where I remember him rolling out, and I'm like, run the ball. And he tried to force a throw near interception. And so, I mean, I don't know if that's maybe the hesitation because of the knee. I don't know, but you'd hope he can still incorporate some more of that into his arsenal again because he is so good. I mean, I thought he's stayed in the pocket a little bit better and stepped up and made throws. Obviously Andrew Armstrong still led the way catching the ball, but I thought he distributed the ball, a little bit better than usual. I mean, Isaiah Satania made several catches. Saw Luke Has catch a couple of passes, I think. Tyrone Broden, before he got annihilated on a somehow overturned targeting play. I thought he did a good job of kind of mixing the ball, not just zeroing in on Andrew Armstrong and throwing him the ball. I thought he did a good job distributing it. and I thought he did it accurately. So I mean, yeah, I think this is back-to-back performances where he's thrown the ball well, especially compared to where he was before. A couple of games like in the 40% range completion. So I thought he did okay, and I think he's. I know there's some people that are still begging to see Malachi Singleton and everything, but I still firmly believe that Taylor Green is your best chance to win games.
Yeah, Malachi Singleton needs another year at least. I mean, I know he led a game-winning drive against Tennessee, but he really only completed one pass, and Tennessee was 100% trying to let Arkansas score a touchdown there when they got close. I mean, maybe not everybody, but that one guy that was waiting for him at the goal line certainly did a little twirl to get out of the way and let him cross. The one thing with Taylor Green, I agree. I think his passing was pretty good on Saturday, but I'm starting to wonder if this Arkansas team can win if he's not effective running the football. They did against Tennessee. He wasn't terrific running against Tennessee, but over the last two games, I think he has 15 carries for negative 15 yards, and of course sacks goes into that. But early in the season, he was getting sacked, and he was still making up for it because he was running. And I don't know. I think we asked earlier in the season, like, hey, can he maybe add the passing game to his running game? And now he's added two back-to-back pretty good passing performances, but the offense has been a little limited because he's not impacting the running game as much. And I'm not saying that's Taylor's fault. I think at the end of the day, the core problem with this team is something we all expected. It's the offensive line. And I know neither of us are offensive line gurus. We can't really analyze whether the switch of a Marion Harris and Keyshawn Blackstock was the right decision, but it definitely seems like the program is still searching for answers. And despite, I think, Bobby Petrino doing a pretty good job at schemes, and the offense looks better at times than it did last year, the SEC production is not really any better than it was last year in terms of scoring points. Turnovers are playing a part, but I'm starting to wonder if we're, reaching maybe a breaking point with this offensive line where they're still searching for answers and they're not going to be able to find any as the season rolls along.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see what they do with Patrick Kudus. This is a guy that you, me, everybody on the media pretty much kind of wrote off like, is this guy ever going to play again? And lo and behold, he comes back during the open date. He practices. He's dressed out. He took second team reps there at left guard during pregame. Didn't play, and now it sounds like he's kind of battling with Keyshawn Blackstock for a starting job. And there's 5 games left. He can play in 4 and still redshirt, and I think that's what they're going to try to do. So I don't know if they make that switch this week. I don't know if they figure out a game down the line like Louisiana Tech. Maybe they don't play him in or something. That would be kind of weird. But I do think it's really interesting to see kind of what they do and see if that makes any kind of impact. Because back in the spring, I thought Patrick Kudus was in store for a really solid year. He had been at tackle last year. I mean, I think Sam Pittman even talked about it. Like, they almost broke Patrick Kudus playing him at tackle because he struggled so much. Moving him inside, it seemed like was a good move for him. And then he injures his back on like day 2 of fall camp, and we just haven't seen it. So, maybe I don't think that's going to be the magic elixir and it fixes everything and they're all of a sudden a super all-star, offensive line, but maybe it is a positive impact if he can return and play up to the standard we thought he was going to play.
Yeah, I remember back at media days, Pittman, I wrote a story about Pittman calling him one of their most important players on the entire roster and expecting a big year from Kudus. It certainly feels like Sam will never say this, but it certainly feels like the switch of Blackstock and Harris was geared towards getting Kudus on the field and in the rotation. Is that as a starter? I don't know. I mean, I if people don't know this yet, I grew up a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. I still try and watch the Hurricanes every single Saturday. They've got one of the better offensive lines in the country this year, and they don't play 5 guys. They typically try to get 6, 7 guys. Now, Arkansas doesn't have that depth, but adding Patrick Kudus can maybe, potentially give you a position where you are playing more than 5 guys, 60 snaps, and you get some breaks in there for maybe it's Blackstock, maybe it's Harris, and they are able to move Blackstock outside more. I don't know what exactly the solution is going to be, but it certainly feels like that decision was made with the thought that Kudus is going to return at some point this season. I'd love to see it because I think, when we start thinking about the future of the program and, not only the end of this season, but going into next season, there are some guys on this team that have extra eligibility, or not extra, but can come back next year. And, maybe it's a 2-year rebuilding program after going 4-8 in 2023. I know that's not something the fans want to hear, but if Patrick Kudus comes back and looks good and you can bring Kudus back next year along with Taylon Green and, Amarian Harris is a reliable starter at right tackle, you start to build the foundation of an offensive line that can gel and come together across multiple seasons. And that's big. But of course, this year as well, they're really struggling. So just adding another body up front, it can't hurt.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there because, that's, look at the other offensive line we saw on Saturday, LSU's. They've given up 2 sacks all year. They've been phenomenal. And I actually asked Brian Kelly on the SEC teleconference, what's the key to that? And he said that big part of it is they've got 4 guys that have played together for several years up front on the offensive line. That just doesn't happen these days. Sam Pittman's talked about it a lot. The transfer portal really hurts that. You can't develop and kind of develop that bond and stuff. But I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think. I think everybody on the offensive line has eligibility remaining. I think Carmona could come back.
I don't. Does Josh Braun? That's the one.
Josh Braun may be out. Josh Braun may be the one guy. But if you can return 4 guys and you still have your 6th guy coming back, could be your 5th guy. That bodes well for next year. And Taylon Green could be in a second year of a Bobby Petrino offense. That would be. I think that would bode well for the future. But again, as you said, people want to win now, and that's understandable. I think if they could find a way to win this weekend's game, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, and then beat Louisiana Tech, get to bowl eligibility, that I think would kind of tide people over and maybe set things up for a really solid 2025.
Yeah, and I think I just pulled up Josh Braun's profile on the Razorbacks website, and he did get to school in 2020 and redshirted, so that would technically give him 6 years to play 5, right? And this is only his 4th year of playing, so I think he does have another year of eligibility. Does that sound right, Hutch?
If he I guess he would have if this is his 4th year, so 2021, 22, 23, 24.
He played 20, 21, redshirted in 22, played in 23, and played in 24.
I think he would be able to come back. I think he would.
I think so too. Now, would he want to? Carmona maybe wants to go test the pro waters. I don't think he'd be a high draft pick, but maybe, I think people were talking about him as a potential draft pick when he transferred to Arkansas. I don't know, but yeah, there is a chance you could bring back 5, 6 guys in this offensive line rotation. And the question is are they good enough, right? I imagine Sam, based off how this unit's performed this year, he's going to want to go into the portal and try and upgrade some talent. Of course, that offseason talk maybe can wait for another day. Arkansas has an absolutely huge game this Saturday. It's a swing game, I think, in terms of their postseason hopes and bowl eligibility, where if they win, we're all feeling close to 100% confident they're going to get a bowl game. It's going to be a 2-win improvement. And if they lose, everybody's sphincters tighten a little bit, and it could be another year without a bowl game. What are you thinking about this Mississippi State game, Hutch? Because I'm feeling pretty confident, but I feel like I'm one of the only media members that does, and everyone else is thinking the Bulldogs are playing a lot better, and Arkansas is maybe not playing as well as it was earlier in this season, and this feels like a dangerous spot for Arkansas.
It's definitely a dangerous spot. I don't feel as good about it as I did, maybe a couple of weeks ago. That's partly because of what Arkansas looked like against LSU, but also, as you said, Mississippi State's offense has been playing really well lately. It seems like that young freshman quarterback Van Buren is talented and special. So that's going to be a problem, but I still feel good about Arkansas's chances. I'm going to pick Arkansas to win. I think that this is a game that, as you said, it's a must-win game almost whenever it comes to postseason hopes and stuff. And I think this is going to be finally the game where we see Bobby Petrino look like Bobby Petrino with this offense. I just think they've been right there. They've had some games where they should have put up some big time points, like that Tennessee game. They should have had 28 points in the first half, and just squandered it. This Mississippi State defense is bad, very very bad. And if they're ever going to do it, this is the week to do it. And maybe it's the see how like 16-year-old Andrew that remembers fondly the 2010, 2011 seasons that thinks that Bobby Petrino can still get it done. So I think that's kind of how I feel. I feel like this is going to be the weekend we finally see Arkansas's offense kind of unload on a team.
I'll tell you what, if they don't, if it's another bad offensive performance, we'll have to have a conversation about, Bobby Petrino, about Taylor Green, about the entire offense, because, Mississippi State's given up points to literally everybody this year. That includes Toledo. And they rank, I think, 117th in scoring defense. They're close to that low in rushing defense. This is a game where Arkansas has to be able to run the football, put Taylor Green in second and short, third and short situations, and they've got to get to 27, 30 points. I think, Mississippi State's offense is playing better, but they're also a team that's played from behind a lot. And when you play from behind, you are forced to, throw it around and be a little bit more explosive, and that can tend to help your scoring numbers a little bit. Not diminishing their improvement at all. They're a much better team than the one that lost to Toledo in week 2. But I think if Arkansas is a good football team, which is what Sam Pittman has said for 6 months now, dating back to the offseason, we've got a good football team. They go to Mississippi State and they win this game. I don't really care if it's by 1 point or by 20 points, but the offense has to look better and they win the game. I think the biggest question, though, in terms of will they win the game is at running back. And Jaquindon is very questionable, was the direct quote from Sam. I don't think he's going to play. I think they're going to give him the week off, and they're going to lean heavy on Braylon Russell. Loved what I saw from Braylon against Tennessee. Hated what I saw from Braylon against LSU. He looked a little slow on the outside, wasn't able to break as many tackles as he did against the Volunteers. It's a big spot for the freshman, and I don't really know what to expect, but I think Arkansas might be a good thing if they're kind of expecting to move on without Jaquindon early this week, and then they can kind of scheme and dictate the running game towards Braylon's strengths. Maybe that's more runs up the middle, maybe some less read options, and just handing the ball off to him. But I really don't know what to expect. Do you have a feel on how Braylon might perform this week in Starkville?
Just hard to say with the freshman. As you said, he didn't look great against LSU. I do have concerns. He's been productive, but I feel like you can still tell he's a freshman, if that makes sense. Like, he doesn't always make the right reads. I remember watching a clip. I think Cole Kubelik posted a clip that was kind of showing Arkansas's fullback, Maddox Lassiter, coming through and making a block. And you see Braylon Russell, if he just followed the block, he could have broke it off for a 30, 40, 50-yard touchdown, wherever they were on the field. But he just kind of plowed into a Tennessee guy and tried to get what he could. I don't know if he reads it perfectly yet, but again, he's a freshman. I'm not putting all these expectations on him where he's supposed to do all this. Maybe it all comes together. Maybe having a confidence early in the week. Sam Pittman said he brought Braylon into his office and said, "Hey man, we're going to need you this week." Maybe that's all he needed. Maybe he needs to know that he's going to be the guy. He's going to start, and he's going to be the guy that gets most of the carries. I think that would be great. And, and if it doesn't work out, maybe we see some Rashad Dubinion. I know he had the critical fumble against LSU that was bad. There's no getting around it, but it was the longest run of the day, even before the fumble. And he's shown in the past to have that potential. I remember the bowl game against Kansas in the Liberty Bowl. He ran for over 100 yards as kind of like the feature guy. He's got that capability. Who knows what Rodney Hill, if he's able to come back, he's dealing with that MCL. I think they've got enough to be able to do something. But my main thing is maybe Braylon Russell can have that confidence knowing he's the guy, and he goes and shows you why he was a 4-star recruit and why so many teams wanted to recruit him.
I'm with you. I think one of Rodney Hill or Rashad Dominion is going to have to step up because I just don't envision this coaching staff handing the ball off to a freshman 15 times, especially Braylon's his highest carries of the season this year has been 9, I'm pretty sure, or 8 maybe against Tennessee. So he doesn't have that experience of being a workload RB1 in an offense. So Sam said what he said on Monday, and I'm inclined to believe him, but I don't think it's going to be just like the strictly Braylon Russell show, especially if he looks like he did against LSU. I think you'd have to pull the plug on that and lean more heavily on Rashad Dominion or Rodney Hill if they're healthy. I'm with you. I liked the way Rashad Dominion looked against LSU. I kind of like the way he looked in limited action against Tennessee. He just has to hold on to the football, and maybe that's a product of not playing very much, is, you get a little casual and sloppy with carrying the rock, and maybe that was a wake-up call for him. But whoever is the running back, I mean, they need a big performance from that position this weekend because Mississippi State has struggled to stop the run all year. And if Mississippi State reels in the Arkansas rushing attack at all, then it's a concern for me whether Arkansas is going to go on the road and win this game. But we'll see. And I think Talon, it's encouraging what we've seen from Talon. Maybe it won't be so run dominant. Maybe I'm overestimating how important the run game will be. If Talon goes out there and passes like he has the past couple weeks and doesn't turn the ball over, that should be good enough as well to win the game. But turnovers, man. I mean, Sam's been saying it. We've been talking about it, but I don't know if anybody outside of the Arkansas building is treating it as importantly as maybe we should, because it's been the difference in Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, LSU. They lost the turnover battle all 3 of those games and ended up losing all 3 of those games.
Yeah, they've been critical turnovers too. I mean, you look back, the obviously it wasn't an offense thing, but the muffed punt against Oklahoma State, critical. There was the fumble inside the 10 against Texas A&M, critical. The interception, that Weeks had for LSU, critical. So yeah, it's not just the turnovers, it's been the timely turnovers or the untimely turnovers, I guess, if you're Arkansas, that have just been absolutely devastating.
Yeah. All right, let's leave football for a second and move on to the basketball program. We'll get the John Calipari era started this Friday night with a home exhibition against Kansas. That for some reason won't start till 8:00 p.m., but you will be able to watch it on the SEC network if you can't go. Hutch, over under 4.5 Arkansas rotational players playing against Kansas, given the injuries that we've been mentioned briefly by Calipari and what we've heard. Do you think this is going to look anything close to what that Purdue exhibition looked like last year?
I don't think it's going to look like what the Purdue exhibition looked like. That was incredible. That was like a true game. Like, I thought that was, it was as electric of an atmosphere as you can come by, and it was an exhibition. I think that there's the potential for this to be a great atmosphere and everything, but I just think that because of those injuries, I think I saw where Coach Cal spoke at the Hogs Illustrated Club, whatever it was, and he said, like, hey, we're not going to be at full strength against Kansas. And that's kind of a bummer, especially whenever you've got only 9 guys, essentially, that are in your rotation, and you have a few of those guys out, then it becomes increasingly difficult. And it would not – we don't know this yet because we haven't talked to anybody. We don't know when there's going to be a press conference to preview this game or anything, but it sounds – I would not be surprised if we get to see some situational stuff. I don't think it's going to be a true let's tip the ball and play 40 minutes kind of basketball game. I think they're going to do some things where they, Coach Cal and Coach Self, they're very good friends. They'll be like, hey, let's work on our press offense and press defense here, and let's play, put 2 minutes on the clock, down 8, 2 minutes on the clock, up 8. Situations like that. That's going to make it really hard for you and me to keep stats and to write about it and all that kind of stuff, and probably not going to be super entertaining to fans. I've heard from some people who went to the events down in Hot Springs and Pine Bluff, and they were kind of disappointed by what they saw because of those limited numbers. They were supposed to be kind of red-white type of games, and they ended up just being open practices. And I think the only 5-on-5 stuff they saw was players versus managers. So I don't know what it's going to look like on Friday night, but I would be shocked if we get to see a true 40-minute game like that. I think it's going to be a lot more practice-y looking.
I agree. I don't think we're going to talk to Calipari this week. Who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong about that. But Bill Self will be talking at Big 12 Media Days on Wednesday, so maybe he'll provide some insight. I'm sure the Kansas media group will ask about his expectations for the scrimmage and everything like that. So that's something everybody can kind of maybe just pay attention to when he takes the podium. See if we get any information from that. According to Bob Holt of the Democrat Gazette, I think I saw Jonas Idu, John L. Davis, and who was Adu Fierro. I think none of those three guys were like at full speed in the Pine Bluff and Hot Springs events. So, it's going to be disappointing. But at the end of the day, you got 9 guys on the roster, and we need them to be healthy on November 3rd or 6th, whenever the first game is, and then Baylor, and that's going to be way more important than this Kansas scrimmage or the TCU scrimmage next week. And hey, as disappointed as any of us will be, it's going to a good cause. So it's hard to complain too much. The number 1 team in the country will be coming to Fayetteville. What player? And I guess you can include any of those 3 if you want, but if you want to exclude those guys and maybe focus on people that we believe are healthy, which player are you most looking forward to seeing on the court Friday night?
I would probably say either any of the freshmen, really. I mean, I'd say, Knox, is very intriguing, and Boogie, those 2 are the guys that are going to be the guys that play the most. It seems like. And so I like to see what they look like, going up, their first action against a really good college team. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing, just kind of how they adjust, how they look, do they look comfortable doing what they're doing out there on the court, that kind of thing. I mean, you could make a case for any, the other guys, TB comes to mind, Brazil, but really it's the freshmen that I'm very anxious to kind of watch and see how they look.
For me, it's Wagner, man. I mean, I think that just the point guard position is going to be so critical this year just because there's a big kind of unknown past him. Boogie Fland will probably be the number 2 point guard, but he was more of a combo guard as a recruit. Calipari said at Media Day, Carter Knox is someone that they want him, when he grabs the rebound, okay, you go and push it and initiate offense. It could be a point guard by committee approach if Wagner's not in the game, but man, if DJ Wagner's not good this year, and I know he was hurt last year, which was a big reason why, but if his production isn't significantly better than what it was at Kentucky, I think this Arkansas team is going to struggle this year. And if I were, betting on it, I think he is going to be better, and he is going to live up closer to the hype of when he was a top 5 recruit coming out of high school than how he performed last year. But it's just something I want to see in person, and I want to see how he kind of runs this offense and works with TB as well, because I think last year we saw a lot of TB hanging out at the 3-point line, not really attacking the basket. He was good for the occasional lob or offensive putback, but other in the half court sets, it was all him behind the 3-point line. Calipari has said he wants a more aggressive Trevin Brazile this year, attacking the basket. Well, the kind of the best way for a 6'10" guy to be aggressive and attack the basket is to have a good point guard setting him up. So a lot of pressure on DJ Wagner this season, and just looking forward to seeing how he performs against Kansas, who it sounds like they're going to be pretty healthy, and they are absolutely loaded with talent this year. It should be fun, regardless, just getting a look at this team, and there's so many unknowns with Arkansas, and it'll be good to just, we'll learn a little bit, it might not be much, but we're going to learn something on Friday night.
Exactly. It gives us a first look, and, I know, especially when the football team's coming off a performance like they did against LSU. I know there's obviously those people that are like, hey, let's see what basketball is all about. So we'll get a good little taste of it, however it looks, whether it's a real game or not. That'll be really fun to see. And I'm also looking forward to seeing Big Z, Zvonimir Ivisic. I think he's going to be just a really intriguing guy, a guy that has generated some, first round draft pick kind of buzz. That I think that's all strictly based on potential. So it's like, okay, let's see it. Is it more than potential, or is it just kind of just that? Like, is it just the potential, or can he actually put it on the floor? So yeah, there's just a lot of unknowns. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you only got one guy coming back from last year's team.
It's a very funny roster construction where there, I think, like the four guys that get the most first round draft buzz, I would imagine, are the four bench players, Ivasic and the three freshmen. I don't think any of those guys are going to start game one. I think the starting lineup will be Wagner, Davis, Thiero, Brazil, and I do. And of course, that's if they're all healthy. But if everybody is healthy, I think that's the starting lineup. And I think the four guys off the bench have the highest maybe NBA draft ceiling. And just funny. It's going to be interesting to see Calipari in this new era, not only at Arkansas but in terms of roster construction, how it all works out. So should be very fun. And I don't know. I mean, what are your expectations? Like we've kind of touched on this a little bit in previous podcasts, but as the season gets closer, how are you feeling about this team? I think I'm getting a little bit more optimistic, where I was kind of playing devil's advocate on why they might not live up to expectations. But I just look around the SEC and I think that this team has just as much or more talent than 90% of the programs in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious caveat is assuming they're all healthy. I think that when you got 9 guys, that's the number one thing. But if they are, I don't see why this team couldn't, be in the thick of the SEC race and make an NCAA tournament and make a run to the second weekend. I mean, at that point, who knows what happens? But I think Coach Cal, we know how his time at Kentucky ended. They losing in the first round, losing to teams they shouldn't lose to. But I think if they just keep winning and have a good regular season and put themselves in position, I think they could make a run in the postseason, and that's what everyone cares about. The Kentucky fans didn't care that he was always first, second, third, or so in the SEC standings. They looked at what they did, losing to Oakland or whatever, St. Peter's. That's what they looked at, and I think if at Arkansas, maybe he doesn't win an SEC title, but get you in a position with this non-conference schedule to earn a good seed and make you a little run to the second weekends.
Very exciting. And of course, a lot of basketball recruits on campus the past couple of weeks. They already have Darius Acuff in the fold. Feels like Malik Thomas might be coming. Maybe Chris Senek too. These 5-star guys. I mean, just the national spotlight on the Arkansas basketball program is going to get ratcheted up over the next few years. And whether they win or lose, it'll feel good. I think definitely as an unbiased media member, but I think for the fans too, to kind of have their moment in the spotlight in a different way than maybe any Arkansas program has previously. So, all right, Hutch, I think we can stop it there and hit the end button on this episode. But thank you guys so much for listening. We do apologize about the last couple of weeks, but hey, we got other primary responsibilities with our job and some health and life enjoyment things to take care of. But we will be back next week to recap the Mississippi State game and as well talk about what we saw over at Bud Walton Arena when the Arkansas host Kansas in the basketball exhibition. You can follow Hutch, bestofarkansassports.com, and NWA Hutch on Twitter. And you can follow me, Jackson Fuller 16 on X, not Twitter, and swtimes.com for all of our coverage. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.